Open your top drawer right now. Actually do it. Look at what's in there. You've got shirts stacked on top of each other in a pile that only works if you never need the one on the bottom. You've got a sock that lost its partner sometime in 2023 and never got the memo. You've got something folded so badly it's basically just fabric origami gone wrong, wedged into a corner where it will live forever, untouched, unworn, taking up space for no reason anyone could explain out loud. You've reorganized this drawer before. Everyone has. You pull everything out, you fold it properly, you admire it for a few days like it's a small personal achievement. Then laundry happens, and you're in a hurry, and you just shove things in because you're tired, and it's 11 p.m., and nobody has the energy to fold a fitted sheet with any real precision at that hour. 2 weeks later, the drawer looks exactly like it did before you started, sometimes worse, and you quietly stop noticing, because noticing didn't fix anything last time either. Before we go on, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far this story travels. And if you're loving it so far, join the family by hitting subscribe, because tomorrow we've got something special lined up just for you. Here's what's actually going on, and it's not what most people assume. You don't have a folding problem, you have a rule problem. Japanese apartments have been dealing with almost no closet space for generations. Small rooms, shared storage, entire families living out of a handful of drawers. And out of that constraint came a system that doesn't rely on you being naturally tidy or unusually disciplined. It relies on 4 folds and one simple rule about how those folds get arranged inside a drawer once they're made. Once you actually know it, you stop refolding your closet every few months out of frustration, because the system holds itself together on its own, without requiring willpower to maintain it every single week, and without you having to think about it much at all once it becomes routine. Why your drawer keeps losing the fight. Most people fold clothes flat and stack them in layers, shirt on shirt, growing upward like a tower nobody asked for. This feels normal because it is how folding was demonstrated to almost everyone as a kid. Fold it flat, put it on the pile, move on to the next one. The problem shows up the moment you need the 4th shirt down. You have to lift 3 shirts out of the way to reach it, and in doing that you disturb the whole stack. The pile above your target item collapses sideways, sometimes onto the shirt you just pulled out. Now the drawer looks messy even though you only took one thing. Multiply that by every morning for a month, and the stack never gets a real chance to stay neat, because the act of using it is also the act of wrecking it. You are not bad at folding. The container you are folding into was never built to survive daily use. A drawer built on stacking has a design flaw baked into it from the start. Retrieval destroys order. Every time you pull an item from partway down a pile, you pay a small tax in disorder, and that tax compounds every day, whether you notice it or not. The Japanese drawer rule fixes that at the structural level, not by asking you to be more careful or more patient with your own laundry. It changes the geometry of the problem so carefulness stops being required. The rule, stand, don't stack. The entire system comes down to one idea. Clothes go in standing up, side by side, like folders in a filing cabinet, instead of lying flat in a pile stacked one on top of the next. When an item is folded correctly for this system, it becomes a compact rectangle that can hold its own shape and stand on its edge without support. Line a row of these up in a drawer, and you can see every single item from above at the same time, the way you can scan a row of file folders in a cabinet without pulling any of them out. Grabbing the 5th item in the row does not touch the other 4. You lift it straight out, and the row either closes the gap on its own or simply does not need to, because nothing above it collapses. There is nothing above it to begin with. Everything sits at the same level, arranged in a line instead of a heap. This is the whole reason the system survives contact with real life, which is really the only test that matters for any organizing method. A pile punishes you for taking something out of the middle. A row does not care where you take something from, whether it is the front, the back, or the exact center. The information cost of finding an item also drops to nearly 0, because a standing row shows you its full contents in one glance, where a stack only ever shows you the top, the 4 folds. You only need 4 folding techniques to cover almost everything in a normal wardrobe. Each one is built for a different category of clothing, and each one is engineered specifically to stand on its own once finished, which is the one requirement every fold in this system has to satisfy before it counts as done correctly. Fold 1. Tops lay the shirt face down on a flat surface. Fold one side in toward the center, then fold that sleeve back on itself so it does not poke past the edge of the body of the shirt. Do the same on the other side. You will have a long strip roughly the width of the shoulders. Fold the bottom hem up about 2/3 of the way toward the collar, then fold that section again to meet the collar itself. You are left with a small, thick rectangle, dense enough to hold its own shape. Stand it up on its folded edge. If it holds without you propping it against the drawer wall, the fold is correct. If it flops over, either the fold is too loose, or you folded the shirt too wide for the depth of your particular drawer. Fold 2. Bottoms. For pants, fold one leg over the other lengthwise, so the two legs lie stacked flat on top of each other. Fold in half again, bringing the waistband down toward the cuffs, so the whole garment shortens into a squarer shape. For longer or bulkier pants, fold into thirds instead of halves, to avoid a rectangle too tall to stand upright in a standard drawer. You are aiming for a rectangle roughly the height of your drawer, one that can stand comfortably on its folded end without buckling under its own weight. Jeans are stiffer than most fabric, so they are actually the easiest item in the whole system to get standing correctly on the first try, which makes them a good place to practice before moving to softer fabrics. Fold 3. Small items underwear folds in from the sides first, then into thirds, landing as a small, dense square. Socks lay flat, one on top of the other, then get folded into thirds. No balling them up the way most people do out of habit. Balling socks stretches the elastic band over time through repeated pressure in one direction, and it slowly turns a matched pair into two socks that fit differently within a year. Laid flat and folded properly instead, a pair of socks stands up in the row exactly like every other item in the drawer, and the elastic keeps its shape far longer. Fold 4. Knits and heavy items. Sweaters and other thicker items get folded into thirds lengthwise instead of quarters, since the extra bulk of the fabric will not cooperate with a tighter fold the way a thin cotton shirt does. The bottom to top fold happens in 2 stages instead of 3, because a third fold on already thick material tends to produce a lump rather than a clean edge. You will end up with a somewhat wider rectangle than the other 3 folds, and that is expected. It still stands upright on its own, it simply takes up more room in the row, which is something you plan for in advance when dividing up drawer space between categories. That covers all 4 folds. Practice each one 3 or 4 times with actual clothing in your hands, not by watching someone else demonstrate it on a screen. The muscle memory takes one real session with real fabric, not weeks of half-hearted attempts squeezed between other tasks. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Setting up the drawer so it actually works. The folds only pay off if the drawer around them is set up correctly to begin with. 3 things matter here, and all 3 are decisions you make once, before you fold a single item. Split the drawer into sections by category before you put anything into it. Tops in one section, bottoms in another, small items in a third, sweaters wherever they fit best given their size. You do not need elaborate labeling or dividers bought for the purpose. A mental line down the drawer is enough. The reason this matters is speed, not tidiness for its own sake. When you are putting laundry away, you make exactly one decision per item. Which section does this belong to? You are not deciding where within the section it goes, because it simply goes at the end of whichever row it belongs to, the same way a new file goes at the back of its labeled section in a cabinet. Leave the drawer at roughly 80% full, not packed edge to edge. A completely full drawer has no give left in it anywhere. The first shirt that comes back from the dryer slightly larger than usual, or the first item you add in a rush without folding it quite as tightly as the system calls for, breaks a drawer already sitting at capacity with nowhere left to absorb the difference. A drawer with room to breathe absorbs those small imperfections instead. That leftover 20% is not wasted space. It is the buffer that keeps the whole system from needing to be torn apart and redone every month. Arrange each row lightest to darkest, front to back. This part is optional and mostly aesthetic rather than functional, but it does something practical as well. A predictable gradient makes it noticeably faster to scan for a specific item, because your eye already knows roughly where in the row to look, before you even start searching. cutting down the small daily friction of hunting through a drawer for one particular shirt. What doesn't go in the drawer at all? Not everything should be folded, and the system accounts for this rather than pretending every garment belongs in a drawer. If a garment loses its shape from folding, a blazer, a structured dress, a suit jacket, anything with real construction built into it, it hangs instead, full stop. If it holds its shape through one of the 4 folds without wrinkling, it goes in the drawer. That is the entire test. Most closets have this backwards in practice. People hang t-shirts and casual button-down shirts that would do just fine standing in a drawer, and that habit eats up hanging space the genuinely structured pieces actually need. A hanging rail overstuffed with garments that never needed to hang is really just a horizontal pile turned sideways. The same collapse when you pull one shirt from a packed rail, just rotated 90 degrees. The habit that makes it stick. None of this matters if putting laundry away goes back to being a chore you dread and put off for 3 days until the basket overflows onto the floor. The system is deliberately built so that outcome does not happen, because the friction that normally causes procrastination has been engineered out of the process itself. Pick up an item, fold it using whichever of the 4 folds fits its category, set it standing at the end of its row. Move to the next item and repeat. Each fold takes roughly 8 to 12 seconds once you have practiced it a handful of times and your hands know the motion without your having to think through each step consciously. And placing the folded item in the row takes about 2 more seconds on top of that. 10 items of laundry, folded and put fully away, comes out to somewhere around 2 minutes total from start to finish, which is less time than most people spend deciding what to wear the next morning. If a fold comes out slightly loose, or you are in a genuine hurry, and an item does not stand quite as cleanly as it should, the row absorbs the imperfection without complaint. One imperfect item does not collapse the ones next to it, because none of them were ever resting on top of each other. That is the actual difference between a system that requires your discipline to survive a busy week and one that survives your bad days automatically. Start with one drawer. You do not need to redo your entire closet tonight, and trying to would be the fastest way to abandon the whole idea within a week. Pick one drawer, ideally the one that frustrates you most on an ordinary morning. Pull everything out of it, refold each piece with whichever of the 4 folds matches its category, and set the folded items up in rows instead of a pile. Open that drawer again tomorrow morning before work. Look at what is actually a manageable, fully visible collection of clothing sitting in front of you, instead of a stack you have to dig through and rearrange just to find one shirt near the bottom. Then, once you have felt the difference for yourself on one ordinary morning, decide whether you want to do the next drawer the same way. That's our story. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell, and tomorrow, more stories are waiting for you. Thanks for watching.